Hardy Kuykendall, United States Marine Corps, Korea. I had the pleasure and opportunity of meeting and interviewing Hardy in California, El Cajon, California. It was October 26, 2005, many years ago, folks. He tells a chilling story of the Chosin Reservoir, no pun intended. The cold there was unbelievable. It's cold here now in Colorado, and I can't imagine being out in sub-zero temperatures for days and weeks. Anyways, God bless these men that served in Korea. I'll tell you what. Hardy was a first lieutenant, served with the 2nd Battalion, 1st Marine Regiment, 1st Marine Division, and he's going to tell an amazing story here. Brandon Glidden, we want to thank you again for sponsoring these stories from Korea. God bless you. Thank you for your patriotism to this country and your commitment to help me tell these stories of Korea, the Forgotten War. We need to understand and learn these things, folks. If we don't learn our history, we're going to repeat it. And the teachers tell me as I travel, history is best learned from those who are there. So I'm proud to be representative of the Marine Corps today. Semper Fi, all you Marines out there, and so much pride and tradition in the Marine Corps from World War II and all the way up to Iraq, Afghanistan, and even today. Folks, I tell you what, I'm going through my archives. I just put 50 more World War II stories on my Sponsor a Vet page. You need to look at that page. The link to that page is in the video description below this video and on my website, larrycapetto.com. Just click on Sponsor a Vet. Some of you are doing that. Some of you are listening and doing that, and thank you for it. I know the veterans will appreciate that, their families and the younger generation who needs to learn these stories about our freedoms. They were born in our free country, folks. Our kids were born in a free country. They don't know what it is to not be free. And so these stories bring forth the price for freedom. So I'm happy to do that. But anyways, if you like to sponsor a story, please, I encourage you to do so, or you want to donate to the work I'm doing, there's information in the comment section of the video. So either way, but look at that page, see all those faces on there, the voices of history. You click on those, you can see what where they served in history, and it's just an amazing opportunity for you to become involved with my work. So I just want to share that with you. Got some exciting news for 2023. I'll do that in a separate video. But anyways, folks, thank you for sharing these stories. Thank you for subscribing to this channel. Let's keep this thing going. Like I said, I don't monetize my videos purposely. I don't have any ads interrupting these stories. It's ridiculous. I don't like that. I think it's disrespectful. So, but I do ask for your help in getting these stories out. So, amen. Christmas is coming up. Merry Christmas if I don't see you again. And again, thank you for watching and sharing this channel and these videos. God bless you.
H-A-R-D-Y.
Okay, right. Okay. Well, basically what I want to talk to you and Bill about is a little bit about Korea, because I'm putting together some stories for Korea, and I really want to focus on a theme for Korea, And for me right now, that's the Chosin Reservoir and the campaign. Can you just tell me, first of all, tell me what Marine regiment you were with, the division and all that?
I was in the 2nd Battalion, 1st Marine Regiment, 1st Marine Division.
Okay, what was your rank and your job?
I was a 1st Lieutenant.
Okay, so now just briefly, when you guys went to Korea, did you do an assault landing on Incheon, where did you guys come in when you came to Korea originally?
No, I arrived in the 2nd replacement draft, and it was shortly after.
You can just talk to me here. Okay.
Shortly after the Chosin, after the, oh gosh.
No, go ahead, start over. That's fine. We're going to edit this, so don't worry about it.
Okay. It was shortly after the Incheon landing, and we came off of Incheon, and they were beginning to get out of Seoul, so we waited on board ship and went around to Wonsan, and we landed at administrative landing at Wonsan. So it was not a beach landing.
Okay, so let's go towards the. Well, I've heard, was it called the Chosin Reservoir then, or did you just know you had to take a hill, or what? Tell me, explain that operation to me. What we referred to as the Chosin Reservoir, what the campaign was, the date, what time, it was November, was it November?
Well, they landed there in October.
Okay.
And then they went on up to the Chosin Reservoir. At least the 7th Marines went up to the Chosin Reservoir, and the others followed. And the Chosin Reservoir was where the Marines first saw action against the North Koreans and the Chinese. And our regiment stayed down and protected the seacoast and a couple of places south of Wonsan. And then they gradually assumed one regiment at a time, and the 5th Marines went in next, and then we came in last to pick up the coterie in another place south of the reservoir.
Geographically, describe to me what the Chosin Reservoir was or is.
Well, from the coast, it was fairly level for 20 miles or so, and then you begin to hit foothills, and then you saw these huge hills that went up, and this reservoir took the water from all of the up north, and it was deposited in the Chosin Reservoir, and then they could use it on down south for making power and whatever agricultural needs and so forth.
Strategically now, from a military standpoint, what was your objective of this area of the Korea? I mean, why did you have to go there and fight? Was there a fierce battle fought there?
No, not in the beginning. There were just small battles that were fought all along the way. And the North Koreans were all retreating to the north, and they were not organized in any big units, and we were following them north, and our object originally was, as I understood it, was us to take towards the middle and then drive up to the Yalu River. And this was right in the middle of the mountains and very tough going. And when we got up there began to be more and more Chinese, and then we were to tack to the west, and that was the head off from, we went to U.S.M.C, and they hit us there. And the rest of them came in where Bill was, and on down on the rest of us in the 1st Regiment.
Well, describe some of this. You're a lieutenant. Are you over a rifle company or what?
I was waiting to get a rifle company. I was a replacement, and I was helping out in supply, but I was just waiting my turn for a casualty, and then I was going to step in for him.
Well, tell me any skirmishes or engagement with the enemy that you got into, and these, I'm assuming, were Chinese.
No, these were North Koreans going north. The first group was down around Wonsan, and there was a village in about 20-something miles, and we were taken into that village, and we set up to hold it, and we got a few that were coming north up along the way, and we had a few engagements with us, particularly on going back from to Wonsan to get our supplies and so forth. And a fellow that was in my unit was killed on that particular operation, going back there. Then there was a village down south where we had had some trouble with some fellows being killed in their sleeping bags, and my battalion went down and south to hold those lines and make the front stable down there. But these were minor skirmishes, really. And from there we moved north and protected a lead-in from that came across the mountains due west from Pyongyang, and we held that position until we were moved up to the coterie in the Chosin Reservoir area.
So again, the Chosin Reservoir, tell me about this. Approximately what day was this fought, or this time? Was it November of 50 or?
It was about the 1st of November that the 7th Marines started up that road to the reservoir, and this took probably about 2 or 3 weeks, and they must have worked 50 miles to the north, and they got to U.S.M.C, which was at the base of the reservoir, close to the base of the reservoir, and my unit was 7 miles or 8 miles south of there, coterie, and we were in a line so that the 1st battalion was down at the base of this big hill, and then I was up at the top of it, and then the 3rd battalion was in this place at the south of the reservoir, and the other 2 regiments were moving to the west to U.S.M.C.
So where did you encounter the enemy? I mean, at what point and what happened?
Well, the first big enemy happened 2 or 3 days after Thanksgiving, and they came in on us. We had 3 companies come in on us that night, and they were a British Marine company and another an Army company and a Marine company. I don't know really where they were, but their units were on to the north, and the Chinese came in on us that night, and there was an ammunition train that was fortunately stopped in our area, so we had plenty of ammunition after that. But the next morning, this really came in on us heavy that night, and the next morning these 3 companies moved to the north to go up to what's the name of the place?
Hagaroo.
Hagaroo. And while they were on the road, they were ambushed, and most of those 3 companies were all destroyed. And there was an all-day battle, and the British were leading it all. And the British company and the Marine company, about half of them or so made it in, but the Army company, practically all of them were lost.
So you had Marines, Army, and British troops there?
Yes, there was an Army unit taking over the east side of the reservoir, and the Marines were taking over the west side. And so the Army battalion was just getting into place at the time that the attack came.
Was that the 7th Regiment, the Army, or do you know?
I think it was the 7th Marines. The 7th Army Division was working with us up there, and that was the first. Yeah, they were the 7th Division of the U.S. Army.
And again, Hardy, what was the objective for the reservoir? Why did we have to go to the top of that area and get the enemy out of there?
Well, the reservoir really was there. That was all. We were to go north of that, and to the Yalu River was considerably north of there, and we were to go up north and attack the line. Now the Army had gone up on the right and taken it up to the Yalu River, but that was fairly easy going. But in the middle, it was really rough because both of the mountains and the supplying and everything was difficult in the center, but we were making headway up there.
And what was your job or your objective, your specific job as a lieutenant now as you're going up the reservoir?
Well, I was an infantry officer,
Okay.
and we had come in a month or two before this had happened, and we were to take over and as replacements when the casualties happened. So I was going to take over either as a company commander or as a officer in the company anyway, and whenever the casualties happened and they needed me. And some of my unit had already gone in to I took a company to Korea, and this company had 7 or 8 officers in it, and some of those had already been absorbed in where there were casualties, but I was waiting to get my turn.
Okay. What was maybe the hardest part of that campaign as far as the Chosin Reservoir? Was it the cold? And I want you to talk about the cold, but what was the hardest thing maybe you saw or you were involved with?
Well, the hardest thing I saw, well, first of all, the cold weather obviously was difficult. It was there it was all the time. And you woke up in the morning, or you woke up any time, why the cold was always there, and you were just really shivering. And the boots were big rubberized boots, and we would walk around in them, and our feet would sweat, and then when we'd stop, that would freeze more or less. And we had socks that we could change and so forth. And that was possible to do, but not easy to do when you were fighting in the snow. The next thing was, I guess, really the battle that took place. I remember we had gotten some funny field kitchens, or trailers really, and they looked like Tunaville trolleys. We called them Tunaville trolleys. And we put them in back of our companies about a couple of 100 yards, and this was in this town, so you could see them. And at night, why, I think the Chinese thought they were really something to zero in on, so they would fire at them and we'd wake up in the morning and they would be all full of holes, and we'd have to plug them up the holes before we could fire up our kitchen to get anything out of them. Another deal, I always remember this, and it's not funny really. I remember when these 3 companies took off to go to the north, to U.S.M.C. The American Marine Company was attacking to the north where we had this huge hill. And the Chinese came down from this hill and started firing, and a squad of Marines went up, and then pretty soon 2 squads, and then a whole company went up and was fighting it. And you could see they were having quite a real rough battle, because the Chinese were up above and the Marines were below, and going up a hill is not easy. And you could see the Marines get hit and roll down the hill. But we had all night long, we were going to make the attack until these companies came in, and they had to go up to join their troops. And so they took our place. So we had a whole 50-gallon barrel of hot coffee that had cooked all night, and that wasn't easy to do, cook it. And we had it hot for us to drink. Well, when they were decided to go, why, our commanding officer said, well, let them have it. So as they left us, they went through the lines, they took their cups, and they dipped down in this coffee and drank it. And then they went on. And the sergeant, the cookery, wasn't very happy about it, because he had worked awful hard all night for this coffee. And so he was kind of grumbling along, and we looked up this hill, and we could see these fellows, these Marines, falling down the hill and getting shot. And he said, I'll be goddamn, all that hot coffee going to hell. So I always remember that. I thought that was a original saying, but I found out it had been said during World War II a couple of times, and it was only repeated.
So how long, when did this Chosin Reservoir end? When did we secure it, or what was it, a month later, a day later, or a week later, or do you remember?
It was a couple of weeks later.
And did we drive out the Chinese and the North Koreans out of there?
Well,
or were they just there the whole time?
well, U.S.M.C Marines, there were 2 regiments over there, almost 2 regiments. That's 2 of the 3 regiments, of infantry regiments. They were over there, and they had to fight their way back to Coterie. And that was the big battle up there, getting them back to Coterie. And then they they secured Coterie, and then there was a huge big battle up there all during the time of the Chinese trying to come in. And there was a huge big battle down around my village, south of there, 7 to 10 miles. But they came over to U.S.M.C, and then they fought their way down U.S.M.C, and they had to fight their way by the infantry squads getting up on the hills to the side and mountains to the side, and while we were on the road. And they fought the Chinese up there, and that's the only way we could get out down the road, was by the infantry units holding the top of the hill. And they did that to get down to U.S.M.C, and U.S.M.C down to Coterie. And then we had some trouble coming down from Coterie, and that's where the Chinese had blown up this bridge, and they had to fly in a bridge and drop it by air, and we put it together, and everybody got across the bridge. It was on the hillside. Was it basically small arms fire exchange, where there's artillery shells, mortars, and I heard there were a lot of hand grenades being tossed? I mean, is that the type of battle that this was, or? Well, my unit didn't have any artillery. I don't believe there was any artillery. You can find that out, but we didn't receive any artillery. But we had a little mortar fire, and the mortar fire would come in on us. And mainly it was automatic weapons. They had a lot of Russian-made, Chinese-oriented weapons that were automatic, and a lot of rifle fire.
Was the burp gun effective against you guys, or?
Yeah, the burp gun was, really effective, but they didn't have enough of them, and they didn't know how to supply them really. But they were very effective on getting that weapon in on us.
So did you see a lot of casualties, or just one here and one there, or were there a lot of Marine casualties?
Oh, there were quite a few Marines casualties. I don't believe we had it as rough as they did it up north, but we had it plenty rough, and we kept them pretty much out of our camp, our area, and so we were supplied by airplanes dropping materials to us, and we were able to build an airstrip. And when the units from up north came down and they all conjugated in our area, the whole unit up there, I was evacuated out. I had had pneumonia and really got serious, so I was evacuated out on one of these airstrips.
I can't see how you even survived the cold. I mean, if I was out one night in the cold, I'd probably catch a cold and die. I mean, how could you guys live outside and get sweaty feet and sweat and freeze and change your socks? I mean, did a lot of guys freeze to death or freeze or get frostbite?
There were quite a few that had their feet frozen and some of their fingers frozen. And
was it a common sight? Or, I mean, was it?
Oh yes, it's very common. It was particularly difficult for me simply because I was from Southern California, and I was not used to being in the snow or anything. During World War II, I trained back at Quantico, Virginia in January and February, but I had never been in the real cold. So I suffered, as everybody suffered, in that cold weather.
I just can't imagine that. It would be terrible. I mean, that itself would have been an enemy to what you're doing. Now, once again, help me with this. Okay, so I'm thinking. Remember how I'm thinking? I'm thinking Omaha Beach, Iwo Jima. I'm thinking assault amphibious landings, taking the island because of the B-29s. You know, landing in France to drive the Germans out. Your objective in this particular what's called the Chosin Reservoir was to get the high ground. Was there a strategic advantage to that? I'm still not clear as to why you had to be geographically in that area other than the enemy was there.
Well, first of all, there was one road up this rather small trail, and it was basically a one vehicle road, so you had to get over to the side for two vehicles to pass. But this was a one road right in the middle of these rather ferocious mountains. But you know, you always want the high ground. That will give you a number of advantages, a height where you can see down on everybody. It makes it difficult for the enemy to climb up the hill. And well, that was just the basic deal that you wanted to have. But with all of these mountains around, it was impossible to have all your troops on the mountains. You wouldn't have anything down in the valley. So we had to shift along the mountains as we went up there. But the whole idea was, first of all, the North Koreans had been defeated, and they were all wildly retreating to the north. And we were in there to occupy the land and occupy the people and to drive to the north. And so we were driving all the way up to the Yalu River, which is the borderline between China and North Korea. So that was the idea that that's why we were up there, not for the reservoir, but we went up there to continue the drive on to the north. And the reservoir was just coincidental that it was there.
How did this sounds kind of silly, but we've got historically, how did the Chinese fit into this picture? I mean, we were, you know, why are we fighting the Chinese?
Well, the Chinese were worried about us crossing the 38th parallel. That's where the north had been, and the south the dividing between the north and south. MacArthur, I believe, made the viewpoint that we should drive into North Korea and conquer the North Koreans, because that's what the North Koreans were trying to do to the South Koreans, and to make it a communist country. So we should drive the North Koreans out of North Korea, or kill them all, or whatever you want to say, because we wanted to make that a real freedom place, democracy place. And so we were occupying Pyongyang, which the army had done. We'd occupied Wonsan, which was the port on the east side, which we wanted. And so we were 2/3 of the way up to the north, up to the Yalu River. And that was all that we wanted to do, was capture everything up to the Yalu.
Were the North Koreans going into South Korea a threat to the United States?
Oh yes, because they were really communistic, and China was communistic. And the next thing on the list was to go to Japan and the Philippines and Australia, and that was just their way of expanding what they thought was the most best government for everybody, and we violently opposed it.
Was there a leader of North Korea or a leader of China that historically that I would know, like Kuribashi was the head of this guys at Iwo Jima, and you know, Adolf Hitler. Who was it in China or North Korea? Do you know what the names of these people were?
There was a leader, and I don't remember his name. I don't remember it.
Tell me, you know, I talked to a lot of Marines. What about the camaraderie of the Marine Corps? Was it obvious there in Korea too, as it was in World War II?
Yes, it was a strange thing. The Marines were down to the, you know, the lowest number that they had after World War II, And so they had to call in the reserves, like myself and others from civilian life, in order to fill their unit over there. But I didn't see any resentment, any feeling one way or the other. They just took us in, and we felt like real Marines after a while. It took me a while to get in shape, but we felt like real Marines. But no, the camaraderie was good.
Do you think about Korea and your involvement there? What does it mean to you today? Does that conflict mean anything to you today?
Well, I feel bad about all the casualties, but you just can't exist in living on that. So I think that it was a good point that we stopped them there. And not only did we stop them, but South Korea came so well developed economically, and Seoul, you look at the town and you're lost in a jungle of high buildings and drives and everything, and it was just a little mud village when we were there. I think I'm real proud that we're able to help them develop. They've got a long way to go out. You get out in the country, well, they've got still some great improvements to make. But they've done a lot. And the Americans really stood for a true democracy when we helped out over there. And, I'll tell you one story. There had been some workers. We always picked up workers to help carry the ammunition, and went and did some of the deals for digging of the ditches and all this sort of thing. And they went right along with us, and we welcomed them. But when we landed at Wonsan on the East Coast, which is where we launched off to go up to the reservoir, these fellows came clear across the country, the same fellows we'd had over in Seoul, and they wanted to work for the Marines. And so we used them. And the last I know, they were still up there, and we took them out of there, of course. It was very obvious that what had happened. And the North Koreans were very supportive in leaving. They took them, about 8,000 of them, I remember, was on one LST, and it was stuck in the mud at Wonsan when we were pulling out of there. And they wouldn't get off because they were afraid that if they got off, they'd get left. And so we pulled another 1 or 2 LSTs up next to them and took markers and made them over to these LSTs, and we led part of the North Koreans that were wanting to go down south over and put them on those other LSTs, and then those 2 or 3 or 4 LSTs, and got down there. But there was 8,000 people that wanted to leave Hageru when we wanted to get out of there.
Well, why is Korea referred to as the Forgotten War?
I think everybody was so completely activated, the civilians and the like, with their workloads, with the supplies, rationing, and there were so many people. There were 16 million people in the services, 15 or 16 million people in the service before we got through. So everybody knew quite a bit about the war. But when this Korean War came along, there were only a few people involved. And the reservists went in, and then I think they had a draft or something after that. And there were very few people that really knew a whole lot about it. And it went on for quite a while. And so people's life was not changed by the war. That is, the basic population was not changed. And so a few of us went over there and took the blunt of the war. I don't resent that at all. You know, it had to be done. And so as civilians, as Americans, as Marines, I felt it was my duty.
What does the American flag mean to you, Hardy?
Well, it's a symbol of our country. It's a symbol of the Marines, because after the flag raising on Iwo Jima, practically every Marine carried a little flag in his pocket and was going to stick it up wherever he could over there. But it means a lot to me. It means freedom, and it means my ability to connect my thoughts and my presence with other Americans who think the same thing as I do.
How about a young person? What would you tell a young person today about the price for freedom?
Well, we celebrated the freedom the other day in the 60th anniversary of the end of World War II. I participated in a Kiwanis Club celebration the other day, and had my picture in the paper and carrying this flag. And there's a lot of young people in the place where Bill and I live, and they wait on tables, and we get to know them fairly well. But they all ask me about, they saw my picture in the paper, and they asked me about it, and I'd written a book, and they wanted to know if I had any copies of my book, and I gave 2 or 3 copies to them. And I don't have any trouble with people that I know. It's people that I don't know that really, they have this, they aren't really patriotic, but after you get to know them and you talk to them calmly and why, they admire me, and they want to know some things about me and about my service, and they're very interested. I'm not too fearful about our young people.
Just a quick question, I'm going to get the bill, but what Pork Chop Hill, that was an Army operation?
I don't know whether it was or not. Bill can probably tell you that.
We'll get into that, but...
I left,
20 minutes?
I left after the Chosin Reservoir. I came back to the States. I was not very stable, and the hospitals in Japan didn't have room for me, really. It was a long time going to get over it. So I fortunately came back to the States after that.
Now, you were wounded in Korea, you said?
No, I had pneumonia.
Oh, that's right.
And so forth, but I was incapacitated.
Could you do one more thing for me? I have all the veterans do this, and you saw it the other day. Could you give me a salute into the camera when I tell you to?
Why, certainly.
Okay. Okay, Hardy, right into the camera. Great. Thank you. Okay.